25 years real estate, which is longer than the conventional bank loan terms. Do we have any questions?
Okay, Frank, we're going to hold questions to the end after everyone has a chance to present their products, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. That was a lot of information, guys. Hold your questions to the end. So you see the SBA is a very powerful organization, federal organization that has a lot of products for small business. They are there especially for you. So we're going to move to the...
Can we have the last slide? We show the contact information for the SBA. Our office is actually located downtown on the Storm Thurman Federal Building, 1835 Assembly Street. However, we're not seeing anyone in person now, but you can call us or send us an email, and we definitely get in contact with you, and then to assist you as much as we can.
Okay, we're waiting for that slide to come up. There you go. There's Frank's information, contact information. The District Austin and the Charleston Alternative Worksite information. Remember, this information is going to be available at the end. We'll make it available on our website, and it'll be on the county's website as well. So don't feel that you got to copy everything down right now, because it'll be there, and we'll send it out to all the participants. Okay, thank you, Frank, so much. You had a lot of information that you brought to us this morning. We thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to our next one. Next person up is James Chatfield. James is the Chief Lending Officer for the South Carolina Community Loan Fund. James develops, directs, and implements the lending strategies and policies for South Carolina Community Loan Fund. Leveraging nearly 2 decades, y'all, of experience in the financial service industry, James forged partnerships with diverse stakeholder groups in order to foster community economic development in underserved communities across the SCCLF footprint. James?
Thank you so much, Cheryl, and thank you for reading my introduction exactly as I wrote it. Good morning, everyone. I'm James Chatfield. I do have the honor and the privilege of serving as Chief Lending Officer for the South Carolina Community Loan Fund. We are a nonprofit lending organization. We're what's known as a community development financial institution. I break that down by saying what that means is essentially we're a lender with a heart. We do lend money to developers and entrepreneurs that historically have had a difficult time for whatever reason tapping into capital and accessing loans for their projects and small businesses. We do have a particular focus on low and moderate income communities and entrepreneurs, particularly with us being a community development financial institution. We're concerned with projects that support community development and also support and lend themselves to the creation, expansion, and development of vibrant, thriving communities. You could go to the next slide. So we have 4 permanent lending programs that we offer currently with loans of up to $1 million. And slight change, breaking news, we revised our loan policies yesterday, as a matter of fact, and that $1 million maximum has gone up a little bit to $1.35 million, which is now our maximum on our loan programs. And we offer, as I say, 4 programs, one of those being affordable housing. When folks hear affordable housing, typically what they think about is, okay, if I want to buy a home, if I want to get a mortgage, if I want to rent a home, will you guys help me with that? The answer to that is not at this time. Our affordable housing loans are specifically designed for folks that want to develop housing. So if you're interested in developing, rather it be single family housing, multifamily housing, duplexes, apartments, and you want to put those in service to either rent or for purchase for low and moderate income or low wealth individuals and families, you're the type of person this program is targeted for.
Okay.
Our second program that we offer on an ongoing basis is what we call community facilities. And through this particular program, we'll provide loans to developers that either want to build or renovate or support essential services in a community. When you hear community facilities from our standpoint, we're speaking of essential services. So things like healthcare centers, doctors' offices, schools, daycare centers, things along those lines that add to, again, that vibrant, thriving, healthy community. Our third program that we offer on an ongoing and regular basis is our healthy food retail program. And this particular program is looking to lend to entrepreneurs and individuals that specifically want to address food access and also expand access to healthy food in communities that may not have it already. So through this program, we've funded things like grocery stores, like community markets, farmers markets, food hubs. We're starting to see a lot more mobile food units, particularly in communities that don't have a community market or a grocery store. And folks say, hey, can I get a loan to actually drive fresh fruits and vegetables into communities that need it? So that's something we're seeing increasingly that we're excited about as well. So if you have a business idea or a project around food access and how we might improve that, which directly lends itself to health outcomes that we see across the state, we definitely want to talk to you. Next slide. Our fourth and final program that we offer is, of course, our small business loan program. And this program, as I'm sure you would suspect, provides loans to entrepreneurs that are seeking small business loan funding, and that covers a multitude of small businesses. Just to give you an example, we have funded things like restaurants. Locally, we had the opportunity to work with Melissa and her team at the Office of Business Opportunities, and we funded a Piece of Soul vegan kitchen, which is on Main Street. And this is my one commercial for the day that I always give because I absolutely love her food. If you've not treated yourself to a Piece of Soul vegan kitchen and Falami Jeter's cuisine, please do yourself a favor and run, not walk, but run to go see her at your earliest possible convenience. She and her staff are fantastic. But we will fund things like restaurants like we've done in the past. We will fund, again, grocery stores. We funded transportation companies through this particular program. We funded candle makers, soap makers, a multitude of businesses. The few items that we won't consider, or business types we won't consider through this particular program, or any of our programs, are things like gaming enterprises, anything that has to do with gambling, anything that has to do with the sale of drugs, alcohol, or tobacco, we won't be able to fund. Basically, sin industry sort of businesses we won't look at through our particular programs. One thing I will stop to note here, and I'm coming up on time, is that we will fund both startups and existing businesses. One program that we have as well that you see on your screen as a temporary program is specifically for businesses affected by COVID-19. Please keep in mind, this is not the Paycheck Protection Program that Mr. White referenced. It's not a grant or forgivable loan. This is a loan that you would actually have to pay back. And through this program, it's designed for both nonprofit and for-profit businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19, and we'll offer loans of up to $75,000 through that particular program. So when you think of South Carolina Community Loan Fund and COVID-19 support, I would submit to you that this particular program would be a great complement if you find you have a gap after tapping into those resources that Mr. Anderson, excuse me, I called him Mr. White earlier, that Mr. Anderson mentioned, like the Payroll Protection Program or the EIDL program. If you still have a gap, this would be a great complement to that. More information can be found on our website, which we have listed here. And I'll be happy to answer questions at the end because I did see a few come in. So Cheryl, thank you so much. I will let you move on. You're on mute, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you, James. That was some wonderful information, guys. I love it. I'm getting chills. I can't wait to hear the other three panelists. So much information that's out there for you starting your new year off in 2021. And it's a good thing that James talked about. They don't do home mortgages. They do development loans for low and moderate affordable housing type projects. Thank you again, James. Up next, we have a wonderful young lady, Ms. Katie Davenport. She is the Chief Program Officer for Communityworks, a regional community development financial institution in South Carolina. Katie Davenport has over 6 years of experience in grant writing, portfolio management, and Cdfi operations. In her current role, she oversees the business coaching, personal financial coaching, portfolio management, and then organization data and research. Katie, you're up.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me today. As Cheryl mentioned, I lead our product and program development here at Communityworks, and I'm excited to share all the great things we have to offer up here. So it was a pleasure going after James because James explained excellently what a community development financial institution is, and Communityworks is one of those as well. And we talk about it too. We're a nonprofit lender and we're mission driven. So everything James said about wanting to improve low to moderate income communities and support entrepreneurs that maybe have not been able to access traditional financing is really where we want to be in this space. And so for all of these programs I'm about to talk about, Communityworks serves the entire state of South Carolina. And that is with both our business loans and our business coaching. And so for our first program is called our Express Loan Program, and it is up to $5,000 specifically targeted to startups and small businesses that are really working to potentially purchase a piece of equipment, get started with their business, and that sort of thing. And these programs are in part funded by SBA's microloan program. And so as Frank mentioned, while we do look at credit as part of the application package, we are not a credit-driven lender. And so we have seen credit scores as low as 550. That does not scare us. What we want to see is how people are progressing on their credit journey. The next level of credit we offer is really for those, I guess, 2 years and older type businesses that are looking to expand or grow their business, purchase a larger piece of equipment, get into their own space, and that's called our microloan program. And all of these loan programs, specifically the Express Loan and the microloan program, microbusiness loan program, come with on-demand business coaching. So one of the ways that we really try to support our entrepreneurs is with continual coaching. If someone needs help or access to accountants or marketing professionals, one of the things we like to do is really make those connections because when our entrepreneurs thrive, Communityworks really does thrive. And the final tier of our business lending products is our small business loan. So Frank mentioned that SBA, one of their key programs is a 7A program. And one of those subsections is the Community Advantage program. So Communityworks participates in that program, and we can lend up to $250,000 with the support and backing of the Small Business Administration. And typically where these programs or these projects fall is for individuals who are looking to potentially purchase their building, refinance some higher interest debt, buy bigger machinery that wouldn't fall into the microbusiness loan program. And while not explicitly, coaching is definitely welcomed in this program as well. So really trying to meet you where you're at and really push you along the way in your journey. And I should also mention that we lend across the business spectrum. So we've seen, we've done businesses that make soap all the way to manufacturing type businesses. And so we're really open to looking at any type of business. If you hit that next slide. And here are some of the requirements, and this really is the baseline for all of our lending programs. I would say one of the biggest things for us is that you need to be located in South Carolina and either a U.S. citizen or a permanent legal resident. And you should be able to provide at least 1 year of a tax return. For our express loan, we're looking for a personal tax return if you haven't been in business for a full year. So thinking through some of those items as you, if you're interested in applying, these are really the non-negotiables of at least our express loan product. And then as we get further along in our credit products, we're looking for more tax returns or profit and losses and balance sheets and that sort of thing. Hit that next slide. And we also know that businesses aren't quite ready to take on capital right now during this time. And so Communityworks is also a paycheck protection program lender authorized to lend throughout the state of South Carolina. Right now, we're only processing first draw loan applications. So you can apply through our website for those. I believe Optus Bank, Dominique is on the call. If you are a second draw and your bank is not offering them, we are referring them to Optus Bank right now. But you don't have to be a member. We're not a bank, so we don't have a membership. If you can't find a financial institution that wants to look at your application, we can certainly look at it. It's not our program. SBA dictates those rules. So we're just going to enforce the SBA rules. And then we also have 2 lines of credit products. Ours go up to $10,000 for a small business and then up to $50,000 for a community nonprofit type business. I'm sorry, up to $250,000 for a community nonprofit type business. These are really intended to help you meet that gap. So as James kind of explained with his product, with the Paycheck Protection Program, that doesn't meet everybody's needs. It's not exactly what everybody needs. And so we recognize and want to help. So for a short period of 12 months, extending capital to get you through some lease payments or additional PPE and that sort of thing. And if you want to skip to that next slide. And then I mentioned everything comes with free one-on-one business coaching and training. If you don't qualify for a loan with us right away, we have an on-staff financial coach. That's our first step to get you credit ready and to help you understand your personal financial situation. If you do get a loan with us, you will receive that on-demand coaching as needed. And then Frank also mentioned the Women's Business Centers across the state, and Communityworks has the pleasure of hosting a Women's Business Center here in our offices in the upstate. And so through that, if you're not ready for a loan, you need a business plan, you're just really wanting some entrepreneurial development, we offer classes and trainings on a monthly basis through that program. Turn it back.
Okay, thank you, Katie. What a wonderful presentation. I picked up 2 things that I liked about your presentation. Number 1, all of you guys work very closely together. And that's for everybody that's on the call today and you're listening. All these panelists work hand in hand together. If you can't get something from them, they're sending you on to the next person. So they all work good together. Another thing is Communityworks don't just give you a loan. They coach you as well. Sometimes lenders leave you out there. They loan you the money, but you also need some backup. So they just don't give you a loan. They give you coaching as well, and we need that too. Thank you so much, Katie. Good presentation. Our next one is a very dear friend of ours. She's been around. She helped OSBO and everything, the City of Columbia, Melissa Lindler. Melissa is the director of the Office of Business Opportunity with the City of Columbia, South Carolina. She is responsible for providing support, training, technical assistance, capital identification to small, minority, and women-owned businesses in the retail, services, and construction industries. Her duties also include overall management and oversight of the city's commercial revolving loan fund, disparity study implementation, contractor and supplier diversity initiative, and the commercial retention and redevelopment program. Boy, you're busy, Melissa. Prior to working with the City of Columbia, Melissa Lindler was a congressional staffer for Congressman James F. Clyburn SC06 for 12 years. Good job. Melissa, you're up. You're on mute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you now.
I can. Thank you. Thank you so much. As Cheryl mentioned, my name is Melissa Lindler. I'm the director for the Office of Business Opportunities with the City of Columbia. We have a number of different programs and initiatives, all geared towards supporting our small, minority, and women-owned businesses at the city or within the City of Columbia. So the loan programs that and grant programs that is forthcoming are all designed to support those businesses within the corporate limits of the City of Columbia. I know a lot of people are asking, are these funds going to be available to, someone in another area or city, and they're not. So you have to be located within the City of Columbia to benefit from our loan program. Cheryl, do you all have anything regarding the flyer that I sent or anything? Okay. Perfect. We're going to talk a little bit, mostly today about our Resilient Columbia CARES Act Revolving Loan Fund. That's the one that we're really focused on right now, getting out into our community. But before I get to that, I do want to say that we do have other commercial revolving loan funds that we traditionally house at the City of Columbia. And I'm happy to say everyone on this call has been a partner with the City of Columbia in providing gap financing to a number of our businesses. James Chatfield with South Carolina Community Loan Fund, he's a partner, as well as Katie Davenport, Communityworks. They have also served as partners with a number of our loans, and Optus Bank, right next door to us, right down the street. They are also a great partner and have been for a very, very long time. And of course, again, as Cheryl mentioned, we do work with SBA directly. We're always calling on them to get information, but also to help us with our training and technical assistance that we provide to our small businesses. That is a focus of our office, in addition to providing loans, commercial loans to our small businesses. And we also have our supplier diversity initiative. The city, our leadership is very, very committed to making sure that our procurement processes, our goods and services that we purchase, our vendors reflect the community that we represent. So supplier diversity, making sure that we have minority utilization when it comes to purchasing and procurement is very, very important. We have a 15% citywide goal, which means that each department must work with minority vendors, spending at least 15% of their operating dollars with vendors located not only here within the City of Columbia, but that means, throughout. So you can be located in any part of the state. As long as you're a minority vendor, we want to do business with you. The only thing that we cannot do is lend to you if you're outside the city limits, but we can certainly work with you with our training and technical assistance program, but also with our supplier diversity piece. Going on to talk about the Resilient Columbia CARES Act Revolving Loan Fund. This fund was actually launched on October 1st of last year. We received $2.67 million from the U.S. Department of Economic and Development Administration. The funds purpose is intentionally for those small businesses, one, that have not had an opportunity to really benefit from other funding provided through the pandemic thus far, through PPP or EIDL. Not to say that we will not lend to you, but our priority is to make sure that we're working with and supporting those small businesses that have not received assistance before in regards to conquering and directly impacting those communities, those small businesses that have been affected by COVID. So the Revolving Loan Fund, one thing I want to say, the funds we offer are up to $200,000. And it doesn't have to be $200,000. I think the lowest that we've seen applications so far is about $10,000. We still have a little over $900,000 to get out into our small business community. We have set aside intentionally a couple of $600,000 probably is left out of that fund for our small businesses that have requests of $50,000 or less. Next slide. Some of the uses for this funding, as I mentioned, our CARES Act revolving loan fund is just an extension of our existing commercial revolving loan fund. So all of the other purposes and intent of our existing loan fund, you can still use these dollars for. And I'll just go through some of those things, some of those items: financing, building, construction, conversions, expansions, acquisition of land, buildings, machinery, equipment, supplies, and materials, as well as working capital. So in addition to the use of these funds, or the use of the traditional loan fund, our new funds may also be used to develop crisis management plans, COVID-related testing for employees, safety and training for your employees, needed modifications to business operations and facilities to accommodate social distancing, purchasing PPE equipment, cleaning supplies, materials or services, inventory purchases, technology, and signage. So again, as James mentioned, there are certain things that we cannot use any of our funds for, and that is the SIN type of businesses, refinancing of any pre-existing debt, or subsidizing interest payments on an existing loans, payment distribution or as a loan to all owners, partners, or shareholders of the applicant's business, except as ordinary compensation for services rendered, acquisition of equity position in a private business, loan guarantees, financing the acquisition, construction, improvement, or operation of real property, financing the creation, dissemination, or distribution of materials deemed patently repugnant. Those again, SIN type of businesses, and other activities prohibited by the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, or any other funding source of regarding the commercial, the CARES Act funding. One other item that will be coming up that we do not have, we haven't launched it yet, will be some Cdbg funds that we will put out there in the form of grants for our small businesses. It's only about $163,000. So the grants will be small, probably ranging up to $2,000 per applicant. Very limited funds, but it's just additional money that the federal government is trying to put out there and put out there immediately to our small businesses. So I'll stop there. I think I probably went over my time, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. What a range of products that the city of Columbia offers to its small businesses. And to know that, because earlier in the COVID time, the city also offered a small grant program. So now the city is building funds again to offer another grant program later this year. So thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you, Mayor, for all the work that he's doing to help these businesses in Columbia area and Richland County area. Thank you again. So now we're moving on to our next one. Anything else, Melissa? Okay. The next one is Dominique Margin. Did I pronounce your name correct, Dominique? Dominique. Okay.
Close enough.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. He's the president and CEO of this bank. It is a U.S. Treasury certified Cdfi and MDI, which is an FDIC designated minority depository institution. Dominique came to the bank in the fall of 2017 as president CEO. He, along with his family, joined successful entrepreneurs, Chairman Michelle and Director Lord, as a significant investor to rebuild the bank into a transformative wealth building ministry that serves all people, regardless of where they are on their wealth building journey. Good work, Dominique. Under his leadership, the bank reached over 100 million in assets, up from 47 million, while returning to consistent profitability over the past 6 quarters. Their non-performing assets have declined to less than 2%, and that is great for a bank, of assets, while percentage of loans benefiting underserved communities and minority-owned assets to have exceeded 90%. It's on you, Dominic. You're up.
Thank you so much. If I could have the next slide, please. Let me just pause here for a moment and just thank everyone and all these great friends that are joining us. I think, Cheryl, as you pointed out, we all work so well together, which is really necessary for us to succeed. And I greatly appreciate the partnership from really all parties represented. We do loans together, we partner together, we share resources together because we all share our goals. And so in that spirit, what I'm going to focus my time on is not to repeat and discuss all of our programs. We're also CDFI, so really between James and Katie, we've covered that ground, what it means to be a mission-driven lender, and we certainly are one of those types of lenders. What I want to focus on is try to be as helpful as we can on a particular program. So Cheryl, what I've been asked to do is really focus on some specific programs that may be relevant right now, particularly the PPP program. If I could go to the next slide, please. I do want to underscore our CDFI history and mission, but I am very proud of our history and legacy as the only African American bank in South Carolina and one of 18 across the U.S. And so the reason I'm so proud of our growth is because we're bucking the trends. When mission-driven lenders and banks are disappearing across the country, South Carolina has a strong presence of CDFIs like I represented on this call, and I'm really grateful for it because it makes our state so much stronger. Next slide, please. We are also serving, just to put it in context, we don't really talk about our products and services as much as we talk about our people. So you can tell from these stats, we serve very intentionally, try to serve people that are outside of the traditional credit box, people that are bankable, that have good businesses, have good income, but maybe missing one of the 5 C's of lending. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. Next slide, please. So to be most I guess, productive with our limited time, I wanted to focus on what's most relevant to businesses today, particularly small businesses that do qualify. My friends and colleagues here talked about several great programs, everyone from the City of Columbia to the SBA and James and Katie, they great organizations. They have very unique and very responsive and creative ways to channel credit and support small businesses. But one program that is very timely is the PPP program. So what I will say is we're in the middle of processing over 500 loans. In the last round, we did over 511 loans totaling $40 million. I'm very proud that vast majority of those loans went to minority businesses and almost half went to women-owned businesses, primarily in South Carolina in our communities that we serve. The second round, the round that is, some people call it the 4th round, but really it's the second draw, I guess, opportunity. We are processing all kinds of applications, both from first-time customers, particularly those that are in the restaurant industry. Those can come back either for their first loan or can come back for their second loan. And as you may know, some of the rules, I'm not going to go through all the rules. We welcome the opportunity to visit with anyone afterwards. But particularly, James mentioned the restaurant, that industry has been hit hard, and the policymakers did respond to allow for that amount to be their 3.5 times their monthly payroll versus the standard 2.5 times for other businesses. So I want to draw your attention to that. So if you're in a food service business, restaurant, you may qualify for additional funds and you may qualify for more than the rest of the businesses. The only other point I would make here is if you are uncertain where to start and you don't know whether you qualify, please reach out to us or reach out to the SBA or reach out to someone. You can start with optusppp.com. You can reach out to Katie and her organization. I'm sure James is also probably taking calls and texts in the middle of the night trying to help businesses survive. So reach out to someone, because what I'm finding in our community and have really appreciated, Melissa and I, in fact, talked about this earlier this week. We did a webinar. There are so many businesses that thought that they didn't qualify, and they're hurting, they're struggling, but they do qualify, but they just haven't, for some reason, they either didn't understand the rules or frequently got bad advice from a lender. So if you don't know where to start, go to the SBA.gov website. You can find a lending institution, reach out to any of us on this call, or go to your primary financial institution if you have one. If you don't have one, reach out to any of us or go to sba.gov. So don't assume that you don't qualify because there may be additional information, and the information is also changing to some extent. Next slide, please. I've been asked to put together a few specific tips that apply particularly to the PPP application, but I will say this, and my fellow lenders and experts on the call can comment on this. These probably apply to any application for any program, but what we're finding is this is a race. This is a race for the limited resources that are available, and if you want to be successful, the more complete your application is, the more prepared you are to talk with your lender, whoever they may be, the better off you're going to be and the better chances you're going to have in actually securing the loan and securing the credit. Because we're all busy trying to help as much as we can to every business that reaches out to us. So one thing we're asking all of our customers or potential customers, please read the guidelines, gather all the documents that you think you need, upload them. We have a portal set up. We're not taking emails. Everything is very simple. We built a pretty seamless application portal. Complete those documents, submit them. If you get a question from a lender, respond as quickly as you can, because time is of the essence. PPP money will, is limited and will run out, or the program will close at some point. It's scheduled to close as of the end of March. So if your application is not in and approved by the end of March, you're not going to get the funding. So please follow the guidelines that we have on our website or elsewhere, and then also make sure that look out for any exceptions that you may have. And if you're uncertain, reach out to your lender, whether it's us or any of the rest of the team. And then finally, we're finding, and this is not a joke, we're finding that people get to the end, submit the application, are so happy, but forget to actually click the submit button. And so make sure you really take the time to focus on what's required for each of these programs, not just the PPP, but make it as easy as possible for the lender to review it and process it, so you don't miss out. So with that, I'm going to look forward to any questions and pass it back on to Ms. Cheryl.
Thank you so much, Dominique. What an array of information we have presented to you today. I want to thank my panelists again. You guys are wonderful. So we have a whole bunch of questions that's out there, about 40-some questions that's out there that need to answer. We won't be able to get it all because we're close, but I'm going to try to get a few of them answered. We're going to go into the grant next, and then we're going to come back, and if you can stay on and try to see if we can get through some more of the questions. I have someone that is attending on behalf of the churches, and they want to know if they're eligible to apply. This question, I think, is for you, Frank. SBA loans.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, yeah, churches can definitely qualify for the EIDL loan. We've had many to do that. On our traditional 7A loans, churches and nonprofit organizations are not allowed. However, for PPP and EIDL, churches and nonprofit organizations are allowed to apply for those loans.
Okay, good. This may be a question for everyone. Credit score requirements. Are there credit score requirements for each one of your programs? Say under 6 or 500. This would be a question for all the panelists. We'll start with you, Frank, then James, and so forth.
Okay, good question. As I mentioned earlier, the microloan program is a program that we have in Katy, the same thing, that we allow credit scores in the high 500s. We also allow that for the EIDL disaster loan. For other conventional loans or for other 7A loan products, I recommend having the scores in at least the high 600s to 700s. But again, for EIDL and for microloan, you can qualify with scores in the 500s.
Okay. James?
Yes, ma'am. For South Carolina Community Loan Fund, we do not have a minimum credit score for our loan programs.
Okay. How about you, Katie?
The same thing, no minimum credit score.
Okay, Melissa? Can't hear you. You're on mute, baby.
Sorry, we do have a minimum credit score for our traditional commercial revolving loan funds, which is 600. But for the EDA Resilient Columbia Loan Fund, there is not a minimum credit score. We're actually not considering the credit score. We do look at your credit just for underwriting purposes, but we have actually made a loan that was in the 400s. So we're trying to get the money out there and realize that everyone's having some issues right now.
Okay, Dominique, since you're a banker on the panel, is there a minimum credit score for your bank?
Depends on the program. In the case of the PPP, there's no credit underwriting.
Right.
So there's no need for us to even look at it. Generally, I will say we look at the credit history.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a minimum credit score because we're a highly regulated bank, but there are all kinds of exceptions that can be made to it.
Okay.
What we more care about is what does the credit history say? Because we know, particularly in minority communities, credit scores are not necessarily reflective of one's willingness and ability to repay. Sometimes the systemic bias that's built into the credit scoring disadvantages our customers. So we look beyond the credit score per se. We really look at what's on the credit history.
Okay, good. So since we're talking about credit and so forth, would that have on what interest rate you charge depending on your credit score? Is there, the average interest rate on a loan? Could you tell us what that could be? And anybody can take it. James or Katie or Dominique, Melissa.
I would.
Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa, please.
For the Resilient Columbia revolving loan fund, we have it at 0% for the first year, and it's locked in at 2.5% for the remaining long term. So the other more traditional loans that we have, it's currently at, I want to say 3.5. Okay. It's 1% below prime, whatever that may be. So it's probably a little lower than that.
Okay. James, do you? Go ahead.
Sure. And based on our recent change of policy yesterday, our minimum interest rate has dropped. So we're pretty much in line with Melissa and her team starting at a point below prime, which right now prime's at 3.25%. And we will max out somewhere in the neighborhood of, maybe 5 to 7 percentage points above that.
Okay. Katie, is there interest rate that you guys usually charge?
Yeah, so it's not based on credit, and it usually ranges between 8% and 9.5% for our microloans.
Okay. Okay, good. And Frank, you guys don't do direct lending, so that all depends on the institution. Am I correct, Frank?
Well, our rates depend on the program, also institution. For our standard 7A, we charge a rate of prime plus maximum of prime plus 2.75. I think the prime rate is 3.25. Look at a rate about 6%. And what we've done, like we were talking about, because of the recovery, we've made a lot of changes to our program. I just read this morning, waiving our fees. Normally, SBA charges a fee for our loan. So now those fees are being waived for the lender and the borrower. So we're trying to make this loan very much attractive and help businesses to recover. A lot of things is being changed for our program.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know. So I have a question here, but I don't think you might be able to answer it, Melissa, but they want to know, do the city or the county will donate a building to nonprofits?
That has not happened since I've been there. Right now we have businesses, but it's not that many. I mean, buildings that are vacant, but really not that many. Most of the buildings that we do have, it's more for development purposes. And we do have, certain entities or certain facilities are available to purchase at this moment. But that's certainly something, if they would like to send me some more information, if they can drop their information or send me an email, I can certainly follow up with the appropriate department at the city. My email address, are you going to provide that information later?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So just have them reach out to me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other loan funds you know of in the other areas of the state, like Spartanburg and York County? I know that Katie and James, you're statewide, correct? So you will be someone that they need to reach out to if they are in those areas, because we have some that's on the call today.
Yes, ma'am. We are statewide, and I'll certainly let Katie speak on behalf of Communityworks, but they're right in that backyard that you referenced.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just say that we are currently managing a special program for the entire county of Spartanburg, and then another program for the city of Rock Hill. So those are on our website if you want more information on how to apply for those special programs.
Okay, good. I think this question may be for you two again. I have land and a house that I want to renovate into a 9-bed assisted living facility. I have my blueprint, business plan, approval from DHEC. What do I need to do to get a loan?
You need to meet with one of our loan officers and we will walk you through the process hand in hand. We will let you know what paperwork you need and we'll help you navigate that process. So either South Carolina Community Loan Fund, Communityworks, or certainly we've worked in concert and we talk a good bit. So I'm sure we both would be more than willing to talk to you about potentially partnering on that. So please reach out to us.
Okay, thank you. Frank, I think this one is for you. It's regarding the EIDL loan. Is there advancing more right now? EIDL, and they applied and was denied because of their credit score.
Okay, yeah, the minimum credit score for the EIDL is a high 590s. What I suggest to anyone, if you were declined because of credit, is to pull all 3 credit scores. If your scores are in the 600s or higher, submit those back to the SBA for reconsideration. You have 6 months to apply for reconsideration to have the decision change. Also, the EIDL advance. We had that previously. I think it ran out of funds. There's something coming out called a targeted advance. That's going to be kind of specialized. You don't have to reapply. I think if you applied before December 27, 2020, the SBA may contact you. And if you receive between $1,000 and $9,000 in the advance, you have opportunity to receive another grant. Now, however, again, there's some specifics they have. I think you must be in a low-income area. You must have less than 300 employees. And there must be some other documentation that they have to verify also. So I don't know how, I don't think it's going to be something very wide that a lot of people are going to get this. I think you have to meet certain requirements to be eligible for that advance for that program.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to make this because we need to get started on our grants. We have a lot of people out there and some nonprofits that want to know about grants because small business, they like loans, but they don't want to know about that free money. So we got to get to that very soon. But I'm going to ask one last question. This is for you, Dominique. What I want to know is how do a person get their self ready to apply for a loan? And we're going to close on that. But if we have time after the grants, we'll start asking you if you guys can stay around for the end. So it's on you, Mr. Martin.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. I will say that my colleagues here are equally, if not more qualified to answer that. But what we typically see, depending on if it's a startup business, and we do fund startup businesses, we do fund businesses all over the country, all over the state. We do want to make sure that the business has their plan together, has their financials together, has their tax returns together. So all the documentation is pretty standard across the board that any lender is going to require. And the more ready you have that, the three anchor pieces that most commercial underwriters will request is your 3 years of financial statements. Primarily would be if it's a personal or sole proprietorship, you look at tax returns, then you look at a personal financial statement, and then you want to look at their credit report. Those 3 things are just about must have, and maybe my colleagues here can comment, but we can't really take an application without at least those 3 things being in place.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Or that's generally the feel of everyone? Okay. All right. My panelists, you all were wonderful. Great information. It's a lot going out there. Get ready. If you're not ready, we just told you everything is available. We hope you can stay around to come back to answer some more of the questions. We couldn't get to them all, but know that we will get them answered. So for now, I'm going to turn it over to Erica, and thank you wonderful guys again for participating. Okay, Erica.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you to the panel. Like Cheryl said, it was a lot of great information. I hope by the end of this workshop that you guys will be ready to take advantage of some of these loans and now grants that we're about to talk about. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Patrick Patterson. Patrick Patterson is the president of Global Partners for Fathers and Families Consulting, LLC. He leads a team of fund development experts who specialize in grant research, grant writing trainings, and technical assistance for agencies. As a grant writer, Patrick has written and led grant writing efforts that have successfully resulted in more than $70 million in grant awards from the federal, state, and private foundation funding sources. Patrick has earned a bachelor's degree from my alma mater, Benedict College, his master's from South Carolina, USC, and his grant writing training from Duke University. So without further ado, Patrick Patterson, it's on you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay, Erica?
We can.
Okay. Good morning, y'all. Hope everybody's doing well. I really enjoyed that first panel, so hopefully we'll keep the party going. With the time that I have, I want to just talk about grants. And so a little bit about my introduction. I'll start with just that everything that I'm going to share with you is based on the work that we've done for almost 20 years. My career started in Columbia. I used to work for one of the foundations I'm going to talk about that has a grant opportunity open right now. I left Columbia in 2003. Columbia is home for me. I grew up in Saxon Holmes. I went to Benedict. As Erica mentioned, I went to USC. And so my career has spanned Sisters of Charity Foundation. I spent 3 years working under President Bush in DC, and I did 8 years under President Obama, overseeing fatherhood, faith-based and marriage foundation grants for organizations. And so I've had a pretty mixed experience. And so I'm going to share some direct things from the grants that we've written that we've been successful at over the years. I know you guys are on webinar, and so you can't share, but I'm going to encourage you, if you have questions throughout, I'm going to lean on Erica to stop me. If there are things that come up, Erica, just pause. I'll stop. We're good. So help me do that as we go forward.
Okay.
Here's a little bit about our organization. And so in our nonprofit space, we do typically 4 things. One of those is set up your nonprofit. If you are not a 501c3 or a nonprofit, those things mean the same in many conversations. You want to become a nonprofit if you're trying to apply for grants. Most funders would like to give money to nonprofits, particularly if you're talking government or foundation. And I'll get into that in a second. The second thing that we do for a lot of organizations, if you are a nonprofit, is we train your boards on how to secure funding for your organization. We've done a number of grants, small and large, in South Carolina for organizations. Pretty proud of that. The third thing is grant research. If you are a nonprofit and you're looking for funding, we actually find grants for you. So that's a separate process from what I'm going to share next. But we literally get your information, we find out what you're trying to do, and we gather resource information from different funding sources to help you identify what grants are available for what you want to do. And then the last thing is grant writing. Last year, for our clients, we did about $14.9 million in grants, and that was a range of organizations doing a range of things. But we're pretty proud about the work we've done in South Carolina, my home state, and beyond. The email that I've listed here on the website is, if you're interested in any of those things, to email Sharani. She's our business manager, and she'll set up conversations that you want to have in any of those regards. So let's start. And I want to use the chat box here. I want you guys to use your chat box. If I were to ask you this question, and Erica, I want you to help me just kind of read through the questions because I can't see the chat box. If I were to ask you this question and you had to pick A, B, C, or D, what's the first step in the process of securing a grant from a funder? Is it A, just start writing? Is it B, review their funding guidelines or the request for proposal? RFP is what it's known as. Is it C, gather data on the problem? Or is it D, craft the budget? Do you start writing? Just put the letter in the chat box and I'll ask Erica to read a couple things off to me. Is it B, review the RFP? Is it C, gather data on the problem? Or is it D, craft the budget? So what are you seeing, Erica?
I'm seeing the majority of our attendees, they're checking B.
B, okay.
B as in boy.
B as in boy, B as in Benedict.
Yes.
So for those who are checking B, and I'd like for you just to randomly pick one person, Erica. I'm gonna give away a free item as we move forward for a training that we're doing coming up. And I'll let you pick the person, Erica. But it is B. In all of your funding quests, when you're looking at getting a grant from IBM, these are groups I've gotten funding for years, Wells Fargo, Chick-Fil-A, the federal government, the Kellogg Foundation. Every last one of those groups, when they are trying to issue grant awards, they issue some kind of document, whether it's an RFP, sometimes you see RFI, that gives you direction on what they want. They want to make sure that you're following their instructions because they know what they want to receive in an application. In my early years, one of my mistakes that I would make is I would get an RFP, I would read it a little bit, and then I would start writing. And by the time I finish writing and go back to what they're asking for, I've wasted time writing. And so to save yourself some time, I want you guys to remember you want to read the RFP first. And I'd almost want to suggest you read it again after you read it the first time. What I do as a practice when I read the RFP, I literally get a sheet of paper or I'll type up a document I'll call a compliance matrix. And what it does is everything that they say they want in my proposal, I'm going to put on a sheet of paper in a checklist. So sometimes they will say double space or single space. I'm going to put that on my checklist. So when I'm done, I've got a list of requirements that I have to meet that I want them to deliver, that they want delivered. It may say Arial font only. I'm going to put that on my checklist, on my matrix, so I don't miss anything accidentally. What is really critical is that you are listening to what they're asking for. I will be firm in saying this. 90% of securing grant dollars starts with following their instructions. 90%. So the RFP, for those who said the RFP, Erica, pick one of those persons, and I'll come back to you in a second, that said B, because I want to do a giveaway for something that I think is going to be important. Write this down, write this down, write this down, write this down. When you are looking at securing funding, I want you to be a resource, not a sales pitch. Most of us don't like being sold to. Most of us love taking advantage of resources. When you're writing your grants, you want to make sure that you are making a compelling argument that lets the funder know that this organization is a tremendous resource in this community. If it comes across as all you're trying to pursue is money, that will not get you funded. And so you want to find things that touch you, that speak to your why, that address a major need in the community. If it's teen pregnancy, if it's isolation, if it's depression, if it's low reading scores, low math scores, you want to make sure that what you're offering to the funder is a resource and not a sales pitch. The second thing I want you to write down, which is really important, and this goes back to my mother. This goes back to my father. This goes back to my granny. You don't get what you don't ask for. One of the biggest challenges that people face when they're looking for funding is the fear factor. They are afraid of hearing no. And here's what I've done in terms of math, Erica. I have figured out that if I ask for a grant, if I apply for a grant, I have a 50-50 chance to get funded. They're either going to say yes or no. Here's the other math question that I've been able to answer. If I don't ask for the grant, if I don't submit the application, if I don't file the paperwork, there's a 100% chance that I will not get funded. And so if you're in the business of addressing a need in the community, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it to help other people. And so the fear factor in my life has become a faith factor. So when I apply for grants, when my team and I apply for grants, we are working off of not what if we don't get funded. We're working off of what if we do get funded. It's a different mindset that you go into writing the application. And so I want to just kind of give you the sense of hope that you have to apply to receive the grant funding. Oftentimes folks get caught up into, I'm busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but a lot of it boils down to afraid of being not funded. And what I want you to start thinking about is, what if we do get funded? And I'm gonna tell you some things that you can do specifically to build upon that process. So here's where I need you, Erica, and I'd love for you to announce the person. So next Thursday, we're having a virtual grant writing training. For the last 7 or 8 years, I've done probably 60 virtual in-person grant writing trainings. And they have been, a blessing to a lot of individuals in the sense of learning the basics of grant writing. But it's also helped me just to serve. For me, we've had success with grants, but my foundation is giving back. And so for us, the time that we're going to spend next Thursday is going to be literally to go a little bit deeper in terms of how you complete an application. We have a little bit of time today, but next week is going to be the nuts and bolts of how you secure a grant. So Erica, I'd love for you to look at somebody who said B. And as a matter of fact, I want you to look at 2 people that said B. If you can call their names out, I want to issue a free registration to those individuals for our training next week. We have a couple of seats left. We typically try to do 30, 35 people. We're at 45 people registered now. And so I'm gonna close the registration pretty soon here, but I wanna offer 2 people free registration to our training next week. So Erica, I'll give it to you to announce who those winners are before we move forward. If you want to register, if you're not one of the lucky persons to win the free tickets, you can click on globalpartnersff.com. The registration flyer that you see here is on the screen, and you can just click on that and register if you haven't registered so far. So Erica,
Yes.
you got the good news in your hands. You got the good news in your hands.
All right, Patrick. So since you said that individuals should ask, I think, and since we had Sierra Butler that actually asked, so I'm going to pick Sierra Butler is one of our prize winners. And also Ms. Norma Brown. Congratulations.
Awesome. Congratulations. Erica, if you could get their email addresses and their spelling of first and last name, we're going to pay for their tickets today, and they'll get their registration via email later today.
Okay, can our prize winners just direct message me your information? I will make sure that Patrick gets it. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Erica. You kind of got this co-host thing down now. You're doing it. Let's talk about, technically speaking, how this works. So I want you to imagine this. Target, Walmart, Bank of America, Truist Bank, First Citizens Bank, IBM, when all of these BMW, when all these organizations issue an RFP, request for proposal, after you submit your application, a lot of people think that it goes to the person that they know at the organization, when in truth, it goes to a group that looks like this. They're called a review panel. And a review panel is a mixture of people that may know where you are from. They may know the issue that you're going to describe that you need funding for, or they may not. In most cases, they don't. So here's the first thing I want you to write down. Assume that they don't know what you're talking about. And why am I telling you this? I've seen people write grants where they will refer to Columbia as the Metro. Everybody doesn't know that Columbia is called the Metro or Soda City. So when you're writing, the people around that table may not even live in Columbia. They may not live in South Carolina. So you want to write to the space that you're allowing people to understand the basics of what you're trying to deliver. So first thing I'd say is don't assume anything. You want to make sure that you're explaining what you're trying to do, where you are, but don't become comfortable in your language where you make sure or you assume that they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. So I think that's the first thing I want you guys to know is that when you submit your application, it goes to a group. Sometimes the group is big like this, sometimes it's smaller, but they are reading your proposals and they're literally going through and they're itemizing what they like about it and what they don't like about it. And so they're going to make that decision independently and then as a collective, but I want you just to hear this. It goes to a group that typically does not know who you are or what your organization does. So you cannot write with the assumption that they will. You want to explain everything. We were formed in 2013. We are we're located in Columbia, in downtown Columbia, or we're in Northeast Columbia. You want to make sure you explain this. Our service area is 29223, which is considered Northeast Columbia. You want to make sure that you're not leaving things for interpretation. So it's very, very, very important. The second thing, this is one of my favorite pictures. When I started writing grants and I finished school and I went through these trainings and I had all of this, technical expertise, I was doing my very best to apply all kinds of technical terms in my writing. And one of my mentors just pulled me to the side and said, if you can't explain it to your granny, it don't make sense. So what I want to say to you guys is I want you to think about how do you articulate a big, big, big problem in common language? In grants, when I go back to this page and I think about the review table, if you are writing with like acronyms and jargon and colloquialisms that only we know, only you know, you're going to end up getting to a room like this and they don't understand what you're saying. And here's the bad part about that is they score you like that. If they got to stop and scratch their head and like, what does he mean when he says the low country? Because they're not from South Carolina sometimes. What does he mean when he says the upstate? So your job is to make sure that you're explaining it in a way that even your granny, even the lay person in your community, even the member of your church can look at what you've written and they can clearly understand what the problem is, what you're proposing as a solution, and how your team is going to make this happen. So those pieces are incredibly important. When I got that understanding, I literally write proposals and I visualize people. I visualize my mother. How do I explain to her that children are overweight because they're held in the house because of a pandemic? Do I use all kinds of technical medical terms? Or do I use the fact that they are no longer exercising by getting on the bus, going to school, and they're becoming, do I say sedentary? Or do I say they're inactive? So it's a matter of which words do you want to use, but what I'm trying to convey is you want to make sure that your writing is clear. Very, very, very important. So keep somebody's face in your mind, in your forefront when you're writing, because that's going to be critical to how you develop proposals. So Erica, let me stop for a second to see if you notice any questions or comments in the chat box that we want to address before I move on.
Well, Tammy, she put some acronyms in the box and it's WIFA, write it for all. I like that, Tammy.
That's
but
beautiful.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So for businesses seeking grants, how would you advise them to build a grant writing capacity? Should they seek training from an internal staff or should they contract with a grant writing consultant?
Well, I'm probably different in this sense because I've been writing grants for a long time, and I have a lot of clients that will hire us and rehire us and rehire us. My dream is that when you hire us, that you learn enough that you can do it for yourself. And so I've seen people do it one of two ways. If you don't think you have the time, it really deserves a dedicated person. So in that case, I'd say hire somebody. But if you are really trying to build the infrastructure of your organization to make that part of what you do, take the time to get training. I finished, and I'm saying this because I want to make this point. When I finished C.A. Johnson High School, I had a 1.3 GPA. And one of the things that stuck with me was a word from a 10th grade teacher that said to me, "You write beautifully." Although I didn't do well in all subjects, I had a lot of stuff that was kind of in my face. That word is why I've been able to secure $70 million in grants. From 10th, I'm 46. I was 16 or 15 when I heard that word. Here's what I'm trying to say. I was not a poet in high school, but with proper training, there are techniques, there are skill sets, there are phrases that allow you to understand how do you articulate the point. And so on my second point around either hiring somebody or getting trained, I want you to think about investing in yourself. Some people think about the cost. What I want to suggest to you is the investment. Because if you get trained and you spend whatever amount of dollars, less than $5,000, less than $2,000, less than $1,000, but you end up getting $200,000 in grants, I think it was a good investment. So if you're a business and you're not a nonprofit, my last point to Erica's question is, in most cases, for-profits are not in front of the line to receive grants. They might get contracts, but if you're looking at grant dollars, most funders would prefer to give money to a nonprofit. If you're not a nonprofit, my email is on all of these slides. You can go to our website. If you're not a nonprofit and you're trying to set it up, reach out to us. If we can help you, we will. If you want just some direction, we'll give you that. But if you want to get into the space where you can receive grants, nonprofit is something that you must have if you're for-profit. So you can do that. Chick-Fil-A is a for-profit. There's a Chick-Fil-A Foundation. IBM is, of course, a for-profit. They have a nonprofit arm to what they do. Wells Fargo is a for-profit, of course. They have a foundation, a corporate giving side of their arm of their business. So I want you to think about, if you're for-profit, don't make this a science project. If your organization is for-profit, the name of it is For-Profit Columbia. Make your nonprofit For-Profit Columbia Foundation. Don't make this a science project. You know, my rules that I use to govern the way I do business, particularly when it comes to nonprofits, are two things: making sure that your stuff is simple and legal. If you can keep it simple, so if you run into the mayor, if you run into, I saw a president of a bank on the line earlier. If you run into the president of a bank and you bump into him or her and you have 3 minutes, you should be able to simply explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're helping people. If you get into this matrix of thinking, now you got documents that are very, complex, but what I want you to think about is you become the mouthpiece, you're the billboard. You're the actual marketing campaign for the business. But if you're keeping it simple and legal, you're going to be in good shape. And that is also how I want you to think about the writing. The writing should be so simple that if you picked it up 10 years from now, if a stranger from another country came here and picked up what you've written, they should be able to understand the problem, the team that's going to address it, and the outcomes that you guys are looking to achieve. And so that's really, really, really important.
I have another question, Patrick.
Go for it.
So many grants are often targeted towards nonprofits rather than profit-making businesses. Mm-hmm. How can a business and nonprofits partner together to seek grants that are mutually beneficial to their mission?
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Let's start with the top. So for most of your grants to be eligible, the applicant or the agency that's applying needs to be a nonprofit. So just follow my hands here. Or maybe I got chapstick, sorry, and a pen. The nonprofit would be the chapstick. This would be the agency that applies for the grant. So nonprofit is your door in. If you're a for-profit, you guys can partner, and the for-profit can then deliver support. I don't know if you guys can see this under the nonprofit. If your interest, the for-profit and the nonprofit, is serving the families in Columbia, simple and legal. But in terms of structurally, most of your grants are going to be funded to nonprofits. So you'd have the nonprofit be the lead agency or the fiscal agent. And underneath that, as a partner or a subcontractor or a sub-grantee, you would have the for-profit. But I've seen that, I've done it myself, where you can bring in expertise, but you want to make sure that you're meeting the funder's requirements, which typically starts with a nonprofit is the only eligible type of agency to apply for the grant.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yep. So I sat at a foundation for 4 years in Columbia. When I was there, we had $85 million. And I sat in the room and I saw us give out money to all types of organizations throughout South Carolina. And so I want to just kind of give you a frame of the thinking that goes into making these grants available to organizations. Here's what funders want to know, okay? And I might not go through all of these because I want to get to my last couple slides with the time that we have. So, but Erica has my stuff. I don't know if you got the email this morning, Erica, but flag her or email me. It's up to you guys how you want to do that. They want to know, what is the unmet need or problem? What's the problem? What problem are you fixing? You know, if you Google right now, teen suicide during the pandemic, it's growing. It's growing. Teen anxiety, teen depression, depression among parents during the pandemic. So most funders prefer to fund something that's important versus something that's nice. So you want to think about what's an urgent need that's not being met that positions your organization to be funded to address that need. Most funders start with, what's the problem? You probably have heard the problem statement question. That's where they start. What are you fixing? What are you serving? Who are you serving? What are you doing to address the problem? So that must be clearly identified. I use this C. I want you to write down this. There are 5 C's to writing a good grant. The first one is compelling. You got to be able to make a compelling case as to this is a problem in this community. And sometimes people love to hear stories or people who can articulate anecdotes around the problem, but a lot of funders want to know by data, how does that problem look by data? And so think about data sources that can help you tell your story. You got the Department of Education, you got DHEC, you got vital records, you got police records, you got the census. That's why the census is so important. You got all of these reputable data sources that can help you tell your story. One that people don't use a lot that I would encourage you, if you haven't used it, is a site called Kids Count, KIDSCOUNT. It's .org or .com, I can't remember. But it is funded by the Annie Casey Foundation, but it can literally go to your block and tell you how many folks have graduated high school. It's a great resource, but what's the problem? The second thing that funders want to know is who has the need or the problem, i.e. who's your target population? So your thing about writing grants, there has to be a level of focus that assures the funder that we're giving you this money to serve this population. I've seen people say, we want to serve all of Columbia. That just doesn't work. You want to isolate or specify who you're serving with the funds they're going to give. And when I say specifications, they're looking at what age range is being affected the most. Data is going to tell you that story. What gender, what zip code, 29204, 29223, 29209. You want to get as specific as possible with who you're going to serve, because different populations require different services. What you would do for a 4-year-old boy, you probably wouldn't do for a 14-year-old boy. So there's no way you can say we're going to serve all the boys in Columbia. Funders want to see you go into focus of how you're going to serve that population. All right, let me go through a couple more of these and I'm going to go to my last slide. How, and I put this in highlight on purpose, funders want to know how and why are you and your team and partners best positioned to address the problem. What does that mean? That means what makes you the expert. Some people believe that expertise comes through training and education. I'm from a school that I believe that if you've experienced something, you've overcome it, you're definitely an expert. If you are formerly on drugs or formerly incarcerated and you've overcome that, you're probably the most expert person that we need to be talking to. And so in every program that I've written grants for, when I talk to clients, when I've done it for my own business, I don't plan for people, I plan with people. If I'm working with youth, there's nowhere in the world as a 46-year-old man, I can tell you what a 15-year-old kid needs. My wife and I have two beautiful daughters. They're 13 and 15. I'm with them every day. We're with them every day. But if I'm looking at serving a male population of boys who are in that age range, love my daughters, but they wouldn't be able to tell me what boys want at that time. So you want to have that population of people with you doing your planning. Most funders want to know that you didn't sit in your office in your air conditioned or heated home and make up some solution. What they want to know is that the solution came from the people. And one of my favorite African proverbs that I use in writing grants is that those who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. So you got to talk to folks who are affected to find out what will help them versus guessing what the solution is. So keep that in mind. But when I think about your team, what I've seen people make this mistake on, and I don't do this, I think it's important. They tend to prioritize folks with education as worthy of being included in a proposal, and those who don't have education as not. And I would flip it. You need a combination of both of those. When I've done work in prisons in South Carolina, I used to go into Bishopville on a regular basis and speak to the guys, work with the guys, consult with the guys, just really doing that. Most of my colleagues that I work with had spent time in some federal or state penitentiary. And so it was pretty easy for us, honestly, to kind of game plan what our approach should be because we had expertise on our side. So I would just encourage you in your proposals, don't hire people that don't have training. Don't hire somebody who was an ex-offender or ex-user. Bring them to the forefront because what it says is your plan is based on somebody's real life versus some idea from research only. I'm not knocking research, I'm not knocking best practices, but you need both to put forward something that's going to help people. The last thing I'll mention from this slide is how will success be measured? What's the solution? How will it be measured? So in my social work training from Benedict College, somebody told me that if it wasn't written down, and y'all know what I'm about to say, it didn't happen. Most funders, when they give you $50,000 or $5 million, like the grant we did for a group in Atlanta this year, the first thing that the people asked us once we got the grant was, all right, what's your evaluation plan? What are the outcomes? How do we get our reports? When will we get the reports? There's a whole process, but we need to be able to measure the success of what we're doing. Most funders know that everything that you wrote won't happen. I've been in the chair where I've awarded grants. We know that everything that you said you're going to do will not, it's just not likely in your day-to-day life. You plan to go to the supermarket, you plan to go and do this and do that, and then something happens. It's the same with grants. What people do that gets them in trouble is they decide to hide their lessons from the funder. If there's anything that I have probably been decent at over the years is transparency. If I said we're going to serve 60 people and we're halfway through the year, we've served 10 people, I'm not hiding the fact that it's not going the way that it's not that we thought it would go. I'm communicating with the funder. I'm saying, hey, Erica, I'd like to have a meeting with you. We're halfway through the program. We're supposed to serve 60. We are at 10. I want to just kind of share with you some things that we've done and then help. Maybe you have some suggestions about things we can do differently. Most funders want to see you win too. What hurts people is when they try to surprise funders by making up stuff. So your outcomes are really, really, really important. So here's my last big bang, my last couple of points. And I'm gonna close with this, Erica, and I should have a few minutes left for questions. So this is a highlight list of things that I would suggest that you do when it comes to securing funding. I do this all the time. I do this with my team. It's a practice, it's a protocol, it's a system that I use. I'm the first to admit, even after we've secured $70 million in grants, I'm still learning. I still attend trainings. I still have mentors who've written other larger grants than I've written. And these are things that really represent what I do on a regular basis. And so I'm going to go through each one of these. I won't spend a lot of time on each one, but I'm just going to highlight the ones that I think, I'll spend time on the ones I think that'll be helpful real quick. So I said this earlier, read the RFP. After you read it again. Create a cheat sheet. They said 12-point font, okay? I'm taking notes from the RFP. They said double space. I'm creating a checklist so that when I'm done writing this proposal, I wouldn't advise you do your own check and clean up behind yourself. Get somebody who can take a look at what you've written and go through the checklist and say, hey, Patrick, I know this says double space, but you didn't double space. Because when that room of reviewers gets together, one of the jobs that they assign every year is compliance. And let me tell you what you don't ever want to receive. I've had this come back to me. I've spent weeks writing a proposal and I missed one of their compliance requirements, double space or Arial font or number the pages. It sounds really silly and insignificant, but here's what my mentor told me, who was my first supervisor at the Sisters of Charity Foundation. He said, if they're not going to listen to me without my money, I know they won't listen to me once they get our money. That's really what that's all about, is can you follow instructions? So here's what you don't want to get, is you spend all that time writing, you submit a proposal, and once it's submitted, you get an email or a letter back that says you were non-compliant. Let me translate non-compliant for you. That means they took your proposal that you spent whatever amount of time writing, they balled it up or they shredded it, and they put it in the trash because you didn't follow the instructions. You should never want that to be the reason why you didn't get funded. Some technicality because you didn't read. So the RFP is critical. That's a critical first step that you want to follow in the process. I said this, number 2, involve the target population in your planning. If you're planning a program to serve people that you have not spoken to, you missed. I can tell you right now, you missed. So you got to have folks around the table who you're trying to serve. You can have somebody who was 20 years ago an addict or a felon, and you're trying to serve that population. But I'm going to guess in most cases today versus 20 years ago, things have changed. So you want to have people who are close to the action, helping you think about what the solution is. Really important. Thing I learned in elementary school, when you start writing paragraphs, you start writing papers, create an outline. I know people who love to just write. If you're doing free writing, great. In a grant space, you need an outline. That's going to save you time. It's going to help you think through the ways that you want to structure your proposal. In most cases, an RFP is going to tell you, this is the first section, this is the second section, this is the third section. They're literally giving you a head start on your outline. But you want to start with an outline. I would not advise you just to start creatively writing, because you got to clean that up and put it into an outline later. The fourth one is creating a writing timeline. So here's what I'm good at, and I will admit this because I'm somewhat afraid to be last minute on stuff. My father put that in me some years ago. When I submit proposals, typically we submit in a day or 2 days prior. If there's a proposal due at 5 o'clock, one of the worst calls I get from clients all the time is, hey, Patrick, it's Thursday. We got something due tomorrow. Can you help us? I'm sorry, I can't help you. You're not going to dump that on me. So the best way to manage your time is to create a timeline. Walk backwards. If it's due February 1st, you start in January, don't you dare say it's due February 1st. You want to say it's due January 28th. That way you can manage the time. So in the event that something happens, you've got a little bit of breathing room so you don't hurt yourself. But always write with a couple days cushion. And most cases, we work up to that early date. Most funders, they pick up on, Patrick submitted this early. Every time we submit something, it's early. They pick up on that. So you want to create the space for you to have a good name with the funder. Your proposal must tell a story. Let me say this last thing, Erica. You got to use data. You got to use data. So I mentioned some sources earlier, but let me stop. Go for it, Erica.
Okay, Patrick, I know since we were talking about time, I wanted to jump in there because we had some really good questions coming into the chat box, and I really want you to get to answer them. Yep. So really quick, and also I know folks want to know where can they get funding. So Robert Kim said, when a for-profit teams up with a nonprofit and nonprofit grant money, I've heard that called fiscal sponsorship. Mm-hmm. Is that still a viable way for for-profits to get nonprofit grant money? Mm-hmm. Or has that gone away?
No, that's going to be here. That's going to be here. Yes. There are fiscal sponsors in most communities. If you Google Community Foundation, if you're in Darlington, if you're in Florence, if you're in Greenville, if you're in Effingham, if you're in Frogmore, most of these sections of our state have a community foundations. And most of them, if you're a for-profit, will allow you to use their nonprofit status. This is not illegal. This is legal, but they're going to charge you a fee. So I've had it happen where I've gotten $100,000 from somebody, and the nonprofit partner that supported us, they charge us 3%, which is the cost of doing business. They may charge you 4%. That's negotiable, but that's still a viable option. That's a great question.
All right. So you mentioned the 4 C's. One was compelling. Real quick, can you give us the three C's?
Compliant, following the instructions. Clear, which is making sure there's no jargon. Competitive, and complete, meaning you did everything. You didn't submit something incomplete.
Thank you. The other question I have is wanting to know, where can we find some grant money? Can you give us some websites? Tell us what grants are available.
Can I serve dinner? Can I serve dinner? I'm about to serve dinner.
Yes.
So you guys have this slide. Erica, I believe I sent it to you. So if you don't, just email me. I'll get it to you and get it to folks. But this is just like a ticker. The last thing I'll say from this slide is, I'll say 2 things, and I'm gonna go to this next slide. The next slide looks like this, so you guys know I've got some stuff for you. Number 7, grab the reviewer from the start of the proposal. Here's my strategy. Here's what I've learned. Here's what works. If you get them excited, it's like if you like reading books or watching movies. Most of us watch movies and we turn it, either we stay with it or we turn it off based on the first 5 minutes. Same with your proposals. So you want to give people something to be looking forward to reading. And so I always encourage folks, that first 5 minutes, that first paragraph, you want to use a statistic or some kind of compelling point that says to them, oh, I can't wait to read the rest of this. Very important. I'm going to skip down to number 10. In grants, less is more. So I showed you guys that panel, that room. I'll say this quick story. When I first started reading grants for the federal government, this is years ago, I was assigned to read 10 proposals in a week. They were going to pay me $1,500 at that time to read 10 proposals in a week. When they finally walked into my room, and I was on a panel, just like you saw on that first slide, each of the proposals were 200 pages. Y'all didn't hear me? 200 pages. So by the end of the week, you got to believe when I tell you I was exhausted. But there was one person that wrote a proposal that was only 70 pages. And the person that did that, before I could read the first word on the proposal, I wanted to fund them because they were thinking about me by not giving me 200 pages. So less is more. If somebody says you got 45 pages to write a proposal, you don't have to use 45 pages. As a matter of fact, the funder prefers that you give them concise information. So that's the last point I'll make on that slide. So here's some grants. There's a lot of other grants out there. Like I said earlier, we do grant research for organizations all over the country. But here's a couple things that I would say are gimmies to you guys. So Truist Bank used to be BB&T. I think they mixed with SunTrust and something else. But go to this website. If you can't get this website off the screen, Google Truist Foundation, and you'll see a link that will point you to their grant application. March 31st, and they have 2 other deadlines, I believe, in the course of the year. that allow you to receive grants from Truist Foundation. You got to be a nonprofit. You got to be a nonprofit. Okay. The second one that I'll mention to you is where I used to work. I'm still good friends with the foundation. All the folks there still love and do a lot of work with. And so I would say Sisters of Charity Foundation. If you're in South Carolina, they fund all over the state. They have a letter of interest due for their next series of grants, March 15th. As I said to you earlier, with these dates, back them up 2 days. First thing you want to do with both of these websites is go and read what they're asking for. So you want to make a quick decision. Does this fit what we're doing or does it not? If it doesn't fit, don't make it fit, because they're going to know that when you apply for it. So you want to be thoughtful about that. And then the last one that I'm pretty excited about is Bank of America. So Bank of America every year releases a good number of dollars. I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars. But Google, there's a long link that I could have put in here, but it wouldn't have made any sense. But Google Bank of America and put the word grants in there, and you'll get to a page where you'll see this information here. Economic mobility, focus on needs of individuals and families. Look at the categories: workforce development and education and basic needs. Grants accepted between 1/25/21 and 2/19/21. The second one is later in the year. Economic mobility, focus on the needs of the community. The areas that they want to see grants focus on are affordable housing, small business, neighborhood revitalization. They're accepted between 5/31 and 6/25/2021. So you've got a pretty nice range. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I can share. I have a few more minutes, Erica. My next appointment is not until 12:15. So if there are a couple questions you want to toss at me, feel free. I can take them and then I'll step away.
So Patrick, what single constructive step should a business take right now to make sure they are well positioned to secure a grant?
If they're a for-profit?
Either or.
If you are, I'll say it in two different ways. As a for-profit, you want to either align with a nonprofit or you want to set your nonprofit up. It's like, I always talk in sports language, but it's like trying to play football without a helmet. They're not going to let you play. The nonprofit space is just like that. If you're not a nonprofit, if you don't have a nonprofit, you're not even going to be eligible. So first step is to make sure you have that situated first. And then the second thing is really to take a really good assessment at your capacity to deliver programming. Is it just you in the basement? Is it just you? Or do you have a team? If you don't have a team, that's not a bad thing. Build it, build it, build it.
Okay, Patrick, we have somebody who wants to know. Question, can you please send us or tell us about future grant classes and housing classes if you know of any of them?
I'm gonna back up my slide deck and I'll show you this one is next week. It's on Thursday. We gave away 2 free tickets. Erica, just because it's you asking me the question, the person that asked me that question, I want you to issue them a free ticket as well.
All righty, so that person is, I'll tell you in a few minutes. I was scrolling up and down within the.
You just email me those 3 names. I know my team is going to get on me because I've been so generous today, but my desire is that anybody who wants to get grants can get grants. And so I'm sorry that's kind of, I don't have the I get money mentality, but for me, I think it's important to let you guys know that it is possible. I've done it. I've been in rooms with CEOs. I told you my story. I grew up in Saxon Homes. It's a proud place for me. I barely finished high school, but if anybody can do it, and I saw myself walk through, training. I've been practicing. We've heard about the grants I won. I've lost grants over the years because of technical things. And what I've gotten really good at the last several years is getting really sharp on what I can do. And then also building a team. I've got 12 staff. There used to be a time when I was writing 7 days a week, trying to help everybody. And then you realize, what's your capacity? on the grant side, if that's really not your thing, hire somebody, get a volunteer, get an intern. I have 2 interns from USC. I mean, it can be done. It can be done.
So the winner is Melanie Williams. Melanie, if you would just email me, direct message me your information so we can forward it on to Patrick. Patrick, thank you so much. This has been really, really good, very informative. Based on the comments that we're seeing in the chat, someone said they really love your passion, they love your story. Someone said this was fantastic. So again, thank you so much, Patrick. I know you have another obligation that you need to get to. So again, on behalf of Richland County Office of Small Business Opportunity, I just want to say thank you. Also, they're just coming in. The comments are coming in.
My email is there.
Keep going, Patrick. It's a well worth of knowledge. So I know, I thought there was a dinner. Someone said they thought it was a dinner also, Patrick. Okay, but I know we had some, so we got about I think we still have some of our presenters from the loan. I know there were some questions we didn't get to in reference to loan, but Patrick, once again, I want to say thank you. So I'm gonna take about 5 more minutes to answer some of the questions that we had earlier. I think we have Ms. Davenport that may still be on the call. Let me double check.
I'm gonna run, Erica. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Okay, take care, y'all.
So a lot of folks was asking, will we be able to provide copies of the slides? Just to let you know, if you want to go back and replay this will be uploaded to our website. It's www.richlandcountysc.gov/OSBO. And also you'll be able to see this again on Richland County Government's YouTube page. So just give us to the end of the day. We'll have all of this stuff uploaded so you can go back and replay the entire workshop. I wanted to see if we still have some of our presenters on from earlier to see if we can answer any more questions. If not, we will definitely download all the questions and send them on to our presenters, and we'll have them to answer you personally. If you want to, just drop your email addresses in the chat. I want to now turn it over to Ms. Chris Kiefer, who would bring us some closing remarks.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you to all our panelists, all our participants, and all our partners who were participating and watching. They weren't necessarily on the panel, but we work with all these people to help support you in what you're doing, whether you're a business or a nonprofit, and we appreciate you being here with us today. And I also want to give a shout out to the whole entire OSBO team for putting this together, and GCS for providing backup support. And I want to especially acknowledge Ms. Cheryl Cook, our moderator. Some of you may not know, but she's retiring this week. So we want to let her know that we love her, we thank her, and we wish her all the best. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Chris. So once again, like I said, this information will be uploaded onto our website. I just want to say thank you all for staying on. I hope that you guys gain a lot of knowledge from this workshop. And now I hope, like we said, are you ready? So I'm hoping after this, you guys will be ready to obtain a lot of the funding that our panelists had to offer. Again, thank you, be safe, and look forward to a survey that we'll be emailing everybody. But once again, thank you and have a wonderful day.